Coming up on Levin TV, we will discuss Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsberg breaks the United States Judges' Code of Conduct. Federal Judge Richard Posner flushes the Constitution down the toilet.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. Welcome to Levin TV. Well, Ruth Bader Ginsberg, the most radical Supreme Court justice, the most senior Supreme Court justice. Remember, she was general counsel to the American Criminal Liberties Union, a.k.a. the ACLU. Then she moved into the D.C. Circuit. Then from there, she got on the Supreme Court. Tell me, how did she get on the Supreme Court? A bunch of Republicans voted for her, in part. But she's been a disaster. She's still a disaster. And part of the problem we're having in this country is the checks and balances are broken down. We have individuals in high office who have no virtue. They have no appreciation or respect for tradition. And so they go their own way. Barack Obama goes his own way, like he's some kind of dictator. Ruth Bader Ginsberg has a lifetime appointment. She's not particularly bright, in my humble opinion, but she's an ideologue who knows how to dress up her left-wing political agenda with constitutional language, even though she has no desire to adhere to the Constitution and never has. But in the last few days, Ruth Bader Ginsberg's been on a tear for Ruth Bader, and she's been out there attacking Donald Trump, obviously a presidential candidate. I don't really care what one thinks about Donald Trump in this context. I care how a Supreme Court justice is supposed to conduct herself. She has a lifetime appointment, so she is immune from the politics of the moment. And yet, she abuses that lifetime appointment by jumping into the politics of the moment. I have never, in all my research and the research of other professors I noticed today, never heard of a Supreme Court justice, a sitting Supreme Court justice, giving commentary on a presidential election. Now, there have been Supreme Court justices who've been very political, even Chief Justice John Marshall. Chief Justice John Marshall, for a time, was not only Chief Justice of the United States, but get this, at the same time, he was Secretary of State to John Adams, our second president. I'm not as big on John Marshall as some of the others are out there, but again, that for another day. But Ruth Bader Ginsberg, this is why I do not believe the Supreme Court should have the power that it has. I do not believe the Supreme Court should have the final say for all purposes. I do not believe in majoritarianism and populism and pluralism and voting when it comes to courts, because then you're making your unalienable rights and your other rights subject to popular whim. No, those are unalienable rights, God-given rights. They need to be upheld regardless of what the majority thinks. In fact, they need to be upheld in spite of opposition from the majority. I dare say if we had a vote in this country today, private property rights would be up for grabs, don't you think? Depending on how the demagogues would formulate their arguments. So it's very, very important. There are certain principles that are not up for election. There are certain principles that should be here to stay. That's why they're principles. And so what I propose in the Liberty Amendments is term limiting Supreme Court justices to 12 years, rotating them out. Moreover, what I propose is that a final Supreme Court decision can still be subject to an override by 3/5 of the members of Congress, both houses, or 3/5 of the state legislatures, both of which would have to act within 24 months so we have a stable law and a final decision. It shouldn't be left to Ruth Bader Ginsberg or any handful of lawyers on the Supreme Court. And that way the body politic, all of us, can participate in the process if we have a truly egregious decision that goes against the norms of the society. Again, it's not a vote. It's the representative, consent of the governed, federalist system where the courts can be addressed through the state legislatures. And trust me, if we had that process in place, which is very much needed now to get this system back in balance, The Supreme Court from time to time would be looking over its shoulder, so it wouldn't impose its will all the time. I mean, the vast majority of states oppose same-sex marriage. The court didn't care, and I could go right down the list. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, attacking Donald Trump from the bench. Now, she's not in the middle of a court case, but you understand what I mean. She has a special role under our Constitution. She's been given special privileges, an enormous amount of power, which she abuses regularly. But here's what starts it off. Here's CBS News. Go.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, long among the most liberal voices on the court, spoke fearfully of a Donald Trump.
She's the most liberal voice on the court. That is, a leftist statist. Go ahead.
Presidency. I don't want to think about that possibility, but if it should be, then everything is up for grabs, she told the Associated Press. In another interview with the New York Times, Ginsburg said, I can't imagine what the country would be with Donald Trump as our president. Ginsburg also accused Trump of holding no firm political beliefs. He is a faker, the 83-year-old justice told CNN. He has no consistency about him. He says whatever comes into his head at the moment. Ginsburg, appointed by Bill Clinton in 1993, offered this thought about the next president. She is bound to have a few appointments to the court. Trump called Ginsburg's comments, quote, highly inappropriate. He told the New York Times, I think it's a disgrace to the court, and I think she should apologize, adding, I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
All right, so this is thoroughly researched and supported, and you can check it yourself if you like. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's not among the most liberal members of the court. She is the most flaming left-wing member of the court. She does not view her job as trying to determine the original intent of the founders. She views her job the way Obama views his job. The world begins with her, and she'll decide what the Constitution says, and if it doesn't say it, she'll rewrite it. That's why I'm so frustrated with conservatives or pseudo-conservatives who would rather leave the country to Ruth Bader Ginsburg rewriting and amending the Constitution and her cohorts on the court than having a convention of states under Article 5 where you and I could encourage our state representatives and state senators to gather and give us our republic and Constitution back.